Welcome, everyone, to another episode of, I still forget the name, it's Turf Talks on Tuesdays. I don't know, Tuesday Turf Talk, I think is what it is. But today we are honored to have our guest. This is Jeff Salmond. Jeff, how are you today?
Very good, Jordan. Thank you for having me on, Ben. Thank you. Appreciate you inviting me.
Thank you for your time. We're excited about it. But, man, I don't know. I don't really have any housekeeping or anything. Let's just jump right in. I just want to find out what you're all about. Give us a brief history of your story in the turf world. Give us the rundown.
Yeah, sure, no problem. My lineage started years ago. I got out about ready to finish up college and at the University of Missouri, and I didn't know. I tried to go into a health-related profession to officially start school and get my degree, and that didn't work out. And so I fell in love. I grew up farming in Missouri. I grew up in outside of Kansas City, Missouri. I grew up farming, and I fell in love with this profession, taking care of the athletic fields and sports fields and turf grass in general. I worked on the Turf Research Center farms at the University of Missouri and changed my major to plant science degree. And then I didn't feel like I fully learned what I wanted to. I did an internship for the Cleveland Browns the year before they left to go to Baltimore. And I came back, finished up my degree, and I went to grad school at Iowa State University. Wouldn't suggest that's always the route for people, but I felt like my learning curve needed to be broadened. And actually at Iowa State's where my love for sports field construction really came into play for Dr. David Minner, I helped build all his research plots and heating and air exchange, not only just in golf greens, but in just athletic fields in general that you see in a lot of the major league stadiums now. And then also sand stabilization, such as the synthetic and natural grass combination. So I finished up Iowa State and didn't have a job, and the Baltimore Ravens came calling. I worked there for a couple of years, missed the Super Bowl ring by 6 months, and then headed out to the University of New Mexico. Spent a couple of years at the University of New Mexico. Moved to Chicago and worked at Northwestern University for about 5 years. And then through different paths with family and then God was involved, I made it to the University of Oklahoma. I was there for 12 years. I left there a couple of years ago and spent a great amount of time there. We did a lot of good work at the University of Oklahoma. The fields where they're at today are still there. And so my progression went through, and it was time to take the next step and challenge. And the sports field construction came into mind. And I'd always thought when I was at Oklahoma that we needed a go-to construction manager, field constructor in Oklahoma. And I found that at the United Turf and Track, and I've been there since 2019. So through that process and through my relationships through universities and through the STMA, we've landed a number of good jobs, and so here I am.
So you just mentioned it a second ago, but I wanted to make sure and point this out. What was your involvement with the STMA? Spin made a point to mention it before we did the little intro there. So tell us more about STMA and you.
I spent about 8 years on the STMA board through an at-large and then through the director of colleges and universities, and then made my way through the progression of secretary treasurer and president-elect and president and past president. And that was my president year was 2016, and a lot of great initiatives we did that are still going on today in STMA. So you only get to serve 1 year as STMA president, so you have to put a lot of things in there. And the strategic plan that we developed, I was part of 3 different strategic plans during my time at STMA and on STMA, and I'm still involved today, different committees. So even though I moved on into a commercial type role, my love for STMA still hasn't stopped and still play a major part in some of the committee work.
Well, now I'm curious. So we're talking sports field construction. I want to hear about maybe some of your favorite projects. What are the big things that you've worked on that people might recognize?
Well, one of the first projects that we were able to be a part of when I first started on was at the University of Arkansas. We did a conversion, and then during a conversion of a synthetic field back to natural grass, and our company was in charge of putting that in along with the irrigation system and then installing. It was part of the university's deal, but they installed Tahoma 31, which was grown on plastic with a matrix fiber inside of it. That was installed by Winstead Farms. So that was one of our first major projects at the collegiate level to be a part of, and it's they're still playing on that same surface today. We did do University of Tulsa soccer field, and they're playing on that this week and their conference playoffs. And we just 2019, 2020, and then got held up by the pandemic. We totally redid USA softball, which is the home of the NCAA College World Series and the U.S. and the softball capital of the world here in Oklahoma City. And we converted that field from a native soil field to a sand-based field. And so that was a big project for us as well. So we continue to do some more work for the University of Arkansas and just other projects across Oklahoma and Arkansas.
Very cool. The University of Arkansas, Woo Pig Suey. So that's where I live. I'm in Northwest Arkansas right now. And because of the Tahoma 31 on the Razorbacks football field, my brother got Tahoma 31 for his yard, and then I followed suit with a little expansion section in my backyard. So I have some Tahoma 31 back there also. So nice work on the Razorbacks field. It looks great.
Very good. Yeah, we're doing some other projects in Fayetteville. We got a Kessler Mountain youth baseball park that we've done there, and Gary Hampton Park we've done there. We've done some stuff in Benton as well. So we've done a lot of work in Northwest Arkansas.
Well, next time you're in Northwest Arkansas, hit me up and we'll come out and meet. I'll help you. I'll volunteer. I'll come move some dirt around. I don't know what I can use.
Very good.
So as far as like field construction, I mean, it seems so complicated. I know that like a green is going to be different from a football field, but I feel like as far as like everything all together, drainage is a big deal, right? The grass and the roots need to be able to breathe and grow, also get water, but then drain. What kind of materials are used? I guess that's what I'm getting at. Like, is there, and maybe you want to differentiate, like if you're doing a green versus a baseball field or a football field or something like that, like tell us a little bit about the layout of what's going down under the grass.
Sure. It's not really any different than in a golf green. I mean, everything is based upon virtually USGA specifications when it comes to sand particle size and drainage gravel. It has to pass a certain USGA specifications that are set. That has the parameters on the different particle size of sand. So basically, that's all we're doing is we're growing. And I used to, kid my counterpart at Jimmy Austin, Cody Elwood. I used to give him a hard time and say, hey, when we bring the football team, when I was at OU, when we bring the football team over to the golf course and see how your golf greens hold up. So, I mean, granted, it's Bermuda grass versus bent grass, but still, it's the same principle as involved as on a sand-based field as 300-pound guys, pushing around, and you're having to grow roots and sometimes, in a virgin root zone. But once you develop the organic material to build up just a little bit to help be a more uniform playing subgrade along with the drainage, it takes a little bit of time. And that stability, and I would say the stability in a sand-based field has to be much stronger on a football playing surface than it does a baseball or softball. And you do see that from time to time on different baseball and softball fields, how they play. They're not made to play, with grinding foot action, and maybe sometimes with soccer, but all in all, it's basically the same system. It's just a different grass that we put on, Bermuda grass versus bent grass. So
have you done any Bermuda grass greens?
No, we stay away from the golf course. We were mainly strictly with sports field build for football, soccer, baseball, softball. We haven't really gotten into the golf course construction.
Stay away from those crazy golf courses. I hear you.
They have their own challenges themselves too. So
right. So I guess we could take the University of Arkansas, their field, for example. How long was that project? Like, how long were you on that job?
That was all done during the summertime, right after the spring football game was over. The synthetic turf company came in. I think it was Paragon at the time, and they removed the synthetic And then our job was, this was foresight of Pat, the groundskeeper that was there at the time. He was sand-based field at one time, and then it went synthetic. And he actually put a fabric liner between a portion of the sand-based root zone and then the gravel system for a synthetic field on top. So our job was to remove all the gravel down to the liner, not contaminate the sand base below, and reinstall new root zone that Dr. Karcher had helped develop, and then have it prepared and ready for basically the thick-cut Bermuda grass sod, because it was installed right at the first part of August, so right before the season started.
I think I remember that. It did seem like the sod went down pretty quick right before the first game that year. Is that right?
Yes, and that was that had been planned as I know. I mean, in a perfect world, you'd want to install, the Bermuda grass as early as you can, in, April, May, as you got soil temperatures and you have all summer to be able to grow the field in. But that wasn't the case with the spring football game. And our time frames in college athletics are so tight anymore, with the way that programs want to be able to use their football field for their, spring football events, spring football in general, and then through any recruiting times in the summer, and then have a solid playable, stable field come 1st of August for scrimmages. So I think it was inevitable that they knew that this was the route that would need to be taken so that the field was playable and ready to play for their first games.
You mentioned something in the sod. What's in the sod?
Yeah, there's a matrix. It's a matrix called matrix. It's a matrix fiber. Is developed in Australia, and Winstead Farms had sent people over to Australia to see how it was done. And basically, on top of the plastic, before you install the sod, the fiber is put down on top of the plastic, and it looks basically like Incomat is what it looks like. And then they sprigged it. Actually, they sanded the fiber, the plastic mesh. They sanded it and they sprigged it and they grew it, and then it was ready to harvest for that August time, that end of July, 1st of August. And it was about 1.5 inches thick, which is what you need the minimum you need to have to be playable that fast for the start of the season.
Wow, that's amazing. Like, what goes into that? As far as like technology advancements, is that fairly recent then? Like something new-ish anyway that they're doing with sod?
The synthetic or the fiber that's a European mentality. They use that a lot in different fields. Green Bay Packers, they have that kind of somewhat similar technology with the cis fiber that they inject into the sand base. There used to be other ones that had backings on them, but it seems to be like a common thing to use in European markets. Is using the stand stabilization for that, and I think it was also just a safety net to ensure that it was going to be a solid playing surface right away.
That's super cool. Well, but then, Jeff, I was going to ask about equipment. So you guys are using like basically dirt moving equipment for a lot of this, just bringing in fill, spreading it out. I mean, I guess the tools get more fine tuned as the fine tuning happens, I guess, as you need to make it more exact. It turns into a rake instead of a bulldozer.
Yeah, we do earthwork packages, everything from, depending upon what the project calls for and what we're willing to bite off the shoe, is the earthwork package, where it comes down to where we have 6-7 dozers on in our fleet that are GPS usable, and then a number of different skid steers. Everything we have is laser graded to be used laser graded. So we use the bulldozers to GPS, get it fine tuned down to plus or minus 1/4 inch, and then we use obviously our fine graded level best, and then some of our skid steer GPS cone lasers to fine tune down to the very small tolerances to get things playable and level.
That shows how far behind I am. Like I said, you don't bring out rakes for a whole lot, then, do you? Because if the skid steer is getting it out GPS, laser level, then no reason for a rake.
No, I mean, maybe at the end when we're installing sod and just having to rake out any tracks or something like that. That's we bring out corners or tight spots. But no, that's basically what we do. Is I mean that's where we are construction wise. Is just big dozers, big rollers, big excavators, and then down to smaller fine-tuned excavators and skid steers.
Let's go back in time a little bit to your time at OU and tell us what an average week was like when you were over there. Like what kind of stuff you guys were doing and recovering.
Well, it was in 2009 we did host a U2 concert there during the U2 360 tour concert years, and that year we had that was done in October, and we had a concert on a Sunday. And then we played 2 weeks later against K-State, and that it was a field that was we had to totally remove in the middle of the season, and we installed thick cut Bermuda grass from Ben Oak Sod Farm in Foley, Alabama, after that concert, and we played on that field for about 5 years, and then we converted to the Latitude, which is currently there. So we go through a typical week. I mean, as far as football, it's preparation Monday, Tuesday, and then basically 3 days of painting Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then towards the end of my time at OU, we did start to practice a lot on the game field and use it in conjunction with getting ready for a game. So we always had to work around that. In baseball in 2015, we converted the baseball field to 100% synthetic, and then we installed a sand-based field in 2016 on the softball field. 2015, we redid football and soccer at the same time that same year. So, but yeah, in a nutshell, I mean, it's you never know what kind of weather is going to be each week. You have to adapt to that, different practice schedules, and I always used to say when I was at OU that I probably had the most bosses of anybody in the athletic department. So from the athletic director to the senior associate athletic directors, coaches, and assistant coaches, there's a lot of people you had to answer to.
So were you over all those fields?
Yes.
So pretty much all of the sports fields. Is that normal? Is that like a normal university has only one?
Yes, typically.
Okay, all right. So you had everything. I assume you had some practice fields also then for each of the different sports.
Correct. We had full football practice fields, baseball, softball, track indoors, track outdoors. We also had a soccer practice field, rugby field, and then all the grounds around the basketball arena too.
Wow.
So there was quite a bit of people, quite a bit of space that we took care of with, we had about 5 or 6 people on staff.
Wow. That seems like more than 5 or 6 people. Like, goodness, that seems like a lot of work.
It was, but we got it all done.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know how many I would have guessed if you would have told me to guess how many people on staff, but for all of that. So Spin, he's over there at Tulsa. You think he's probably just doing it by himself then?
Yeah, he usually does stuff by himself.
Superman.
But no, I've always had a love for construction. Like I said, back from my time when I was at Iowa State University, and this has been a great challenge. For United Turf and Track, what I do is a lot of stuff on the natural grass side of with construction and talking with clients and with the owners and then architects and construction managers. I do the same on the synthetic side of our business as well. I do the same thing. And then we also have a third part of our operation is our natural grass service or sports field services, where we do overseeding, top dressing, aerification, laser grading. So we do have 3 facets to our company, and I touch all of them, all 3 parts of our company, and I also take care of a lot of outside of the organization stuff to help the organization in the community.
So yeah, I guess on their smaller projects for people, what kinds of, or is it only sports fields? Is that like basically the bread and butter, and that's all that you guys do?
Yeah, pretty much. There's times that we'll get into doing futsal courts or pickleball courts or concrete work. we have on our synthetic side of our business, we're fully capable of doing everything in house, concrete installation, you name it. On our natural grass construction side, we do everything except for sod installation and irrigation work.
That sod installation. I totally understand how you just want to outsource that or tell the people you figure that out on your own. That that part isn't maybe the most fun.
We're getting ready to add a fourth division, would be synthetic field maintenance. We're getting ready to add that here hopefully pretty soon.
So you got with synthetic field maintenance, is there a lot of replacement going on, like patches of it, or is it mostly like the top dressing, or I don't know what you call it then, if it's that rubber stuff or sand,
Yeah,
either way?
just grooming fields and cleaning them. Just annual maintenance programs.
Very cool. And you're like, I guess the name of the company one more time?
United Turf and Track.
United Turf and Track, and it's mostly like Arkansas and Oklahoma.
Yes, sir.
There you go. So if anybody's out there and they want to build a football field in their backyard or something, they know who to call now.
We have track in our name too, so we're just now finishing up a track at Oklahoma Christian University here in North Oklahoma City, Edmond area. So we do 4 to 5 tracks a year.
Nice. I guess that makes sense. No, I was going to ask, how's your personal yard? Are you like, once you get done with work, you're like, no, I'm not going to pay attention to my own yard, or do you like to keep it up nice?
I try to do the best I can. I'll be like a mechanic. Mechanics always have broken down cars, but he's fixing everybody else's cars. But no, it is funny to watch every once in a while that I don't put a whole lot of inputs in it. It costs a lot of money to make your yard look nice. But when I do, I always see the neighbors checking out what I was doing, and then they'll see results a couple weeks later, and then they'll ask me what I did. And so that's kind of a chuckle every once in a while, because I know how much it takes to get in to make a yard or grass look good, but I don't put a whole lot of effort into it when it comes to my yard.
No, like you said, yeah, the mechanic doesn't want to work on his own car when he gets home. What type of grass do you have? Or do neighbors even know that you're like who you are, or do they just see like, oh, this guy's grass is kind of nice, or is it like they know what you did?
Oh yeah, they know. It's a big United Turf and truck that I pull in the driveway. So.
I got you.
But they're always asking for advice on what to do. So, but it's fun to talk to them.
My neighbors stay away from me. I don't know what it is. Intimidation factor or something.
Jeff, I got a question. You know, the product that they use at the University of Arkansas, what do they do if they have to replace that field? I mean, if it's got the turf, like turf grids and stuff like that, I know a Magnum harvester won't come in there and cut it just right out. So, it gums up the blade on the harvester. So would they just core row it out? I mean, is it something easily done?
That's a good question. Right now, like with that matrix where it's at, if they have to replace the irrigation head or work on the irrigation head, they have to cut through the matrix fiber and remove, big size piece to get it out, and that stays with it. And then I don't know what they do if they replace it back with the sod. But if I know one thing is they can't, they're not able to top dress too heavily. Otherwise, it gets it too far away from the matrix. I think for the most part, though, when it comes to Bermuda grass, I think it was just the closest and proximity to the start of the season. They wanted to ensure they had a good lateral, strong, stable surface. And I think with the Bermuda grass, obviously over a little bit of time, it's going to be fine. It's going to grow in just fine and be solid and be a good playing surface, which it has been. So I think that was just an instance where they wanted to ensure that they had a good surface and it was going to be problems. Now, if they go to replace it, then it'll have to be virtually have to be cut and probably rolled up. And that might be probably the only way to remove it, because there is that fiber that's in there. I think it would get caught up in a Coro machine when they go to remove it.
Okay, so right now, if they got to cut a piece of sod out, do they use the cement saw to cut that out?
I think so, yes. I think they have replaced their sidelines. I think their sidelines last year they're really shallow. They only have like a not even 6 foot border before they get to the artificial bench area. And so that area got worn out. I think they cut that completely out and just put in conventional Tahoma back in.
Wow, that's really interesting. So that's 100% sand system there.
Yes.
So there's no organics in the root zone.
Not really. No, it's 100%. It was 100% sand.
Okay, all right, because then they will need some stabilization in there if they don't have any organics, anything in there to hold the roots. So if they got rid of that whole Inca mat system, then yeah, they would have to put in some organics.
Well, spin is developing organics with the roots. The roots that are growing through the backing and growing through the matrix. It's developing its own organics.
Yeah, that's interesting. Pretty cool stuff.
Going back to USA Softball, the construction of that, we started that in December of 2019, and our deadline was to be ready for the College World Series in May 2020, which we would have made it and would have been ready, but then they had canceled it because of COVID that year. So this past year was the first go at it at the College World Series, and for that, the field has a 300-foot fence for slow pitch, because they play slow pitch there, men's slow pitch there, and they play, obviously, Olympic is a home for the Olympic team, and so they also have the ability for a 220-foot fence and then a 200-foot fence for NCAA. So for the NCAA tournament, they require to have a warning track. So we cut in a 10-foot warning track in the sand base for the College World Series, and then removed it after the College World Series was over.
Wow.
And then reinstalled new Tahoma 31.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
That was a pretty big project. Not only did we do the field construction, we did all the drainage, all the stadium drains virtually to the field through different avenues, and we totally installed a whole new drainage system for the stadium for that, plus the field itself, installation of the field itself.
So when you put the drainage in, do you use 4-inch corrugated PVC pipe or 3-inch?
We used 4-inch ADS.
Okay.
For the drainage system for the stadium, that was big 24 inch collectors that all of our stuff for the field tied into, but it would drain out to the right field corner.
Right. Okay.
So
pretty interesting.
So there's different things that you have to. Virtually, you're starting with whether it's a natural grass field or it's a synthetic field. You're starting with a firm base to work off of. Typically, on our synthetic fields, we would stabilize the soil, depending upon what the geotech survey came back saying how stable the subsoils were. But typically, we do stabilize with a CKD or Portland cement, where you till it into the soil with the moisture, and it creates that hard layer, bridging layer. And so you do something similar to that when you're creating basically a USGA green specifications for the natural grass field, whether it's with the 4-inch ADS pipe, typically cut into the drain into the subsurface, and then filter fabric, entrenching your trench gravel, and then your root zone sand. Your root zone sand, and it has to meet the specifications that it bridges across the gravel. That's fairly closely watched to make sure that your sand's not going to filter into your drainage gravel.
Right, and choke it.
And then you grow the grass. And then, so typically, it's the rooting system of the grass is what holds everything together. So whether you're building that or you're building a synthetic field, it virtually starts from the same base. Similar base.
Always amazes me hearing about field construction and how much work goes into it. And like you said, people will tear up the entire thing and replace it, for the next season, or because a different coach wanted it something different or whatever. Just so much work.
Yeah, one of the things that gave a lot of perspective for me, not being on the commercial side, on the actual builder side, was when I used to be the owner on the owner side, was that there's a lot of balls in the court, a lot of balls in the air that you have to juggle when it comes to just a construction project. It's whether it be weather or whether it be now we're running into some instances supply chain issues. not too much on our end, but you see it every once in a while, especially if we get into construction management projects where we do the full project, including fencing and what have you. There's different things that we can do, like from a general contracting standpoint, we can do. So being able to juggle all those things and schedule and people and equipment, it is a challenge, and it's something that I've enjoyed in my short amount of time, and I'm still learning each and every day. And so that's why one thing that's been good is something that just makes you make that challenge and be on to the next one. So it's great to be able to start from nothing and then finish it off at the end, and then people be ready to play on it and use it. That's the biggest joy.
Yeah, nice. I can get that for sure. The satisfaction. Well, I have to head out, but I just want to say thank you for being here. You guys can stay and hang out and talk more and ask questions this sort, but I'm going to head out. But thank you, Jeff, for being here. Thank you for your time again and answering all of our questions. Yeah. No, so you guys, like I said, you can hang out and whatever you need to do, you let us know. But I'm going to head out and I'll bid you all adieu.
Give me DM me on Twitter or something, and when I'm over in Arkansas, over in Northwest Arkansas, I'll find you.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you, Jordan.
See you later.
So, Jeff, is there any new Bermudas that's out that's grabbing your attention?
Yeah, there's obviously the Tahoma 31 is somewhat newer and in the same lineage of Latitude and Northbridge. A new one that was been developed here in Oklahoma out of Johnston Seed Company is an Enid is the iron cutter is one. Yep. And we starting to see that. We worked on a project in western Oklahoma on that, so I've got to see that, and it looks to have some promising across the country. They think there's different places that they're starting to use that. And then obviously seeing the TIF Tup, making different rounds in the state. So depending upon the client or the job, depends on what they're calling for. We'll install whatever they want. But so it's great to be able to see these different newer varieties coming out and how they're being used.
So, I mean, is everybody right now asking you to put in Tahoma or Latitude or Northbridge? Is there any one that they're all talking about right now?
Typically, a lot of the projects higher end projects, I would say, would be going for the Tahomas or the iron cutters or the TIF Tufts. Typically in Oklahoma, a lot of the projects that we do, we install a lot of Astro. Astro is still a really good Bermuda grass, good playability, easy to overseed into if you're overseeding. That's about it on that end. I mean, we don't really install any zoysias or anything like that, but just mainly Bermuda grasses.
Yeah, that Astro. I mean, you were at my softball field yesterday, and that's Astro, and it just overseeds great. And you saw my Tahoma. It was so, it's so thick. Yeah. It's really hard to get into overseeing that. But the Astro is it's just beautiful in that manner. But I love my Astro. It just don't, the color's not as green as the new varieties that are out now. But Dr. Martin's going to be working on something with the Astro. Hopefully it'll be out in a couple of years. But so Evie, you're up. You got a question?
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts or preferences on synthetic versus like natural turf in terms of install or I guess how the field ends up?
So the question is, do I have any preference on if it's a natural grass field or a synthetic field?
Yeah.
We'll install whatever the customer wants. Obviously my background's more on the natural grass side, and so that's one side of our company that I've helped kind of pull up. Our company started out as a synthetic field company, independent synthetic company, and so to be a well-rounded sports field construction company, they brought me on to help really build up the natural grass side, along with our president now, Jared Simmons. And so we really can hit all different angles My preference, obviously, is natural grass. I think that's the way to go. But if the client's wanting to do synthetic, then we'll install that as well. I think there's some benefits to having synthetic surface somewhere on a campus or in a place to help take any pressures off and to be able to let the natural grass field recover with a lot of events. And that's one of the bigger struggles that you see is that the inputs to establish a good natural grass field, quote unquote, the natural grass can take more. You gotta back that up with some maintenance, and you can see at the high school level that just doesn't happen. They'd rather much just put in a synthetic field because they have a band practice, they have sixth grade football, JV football, high school football, JV soccer, varsity soccer, and so that's what you run into. And a lot of times it also has to do with what small in these towns, what the next town over is doing, and what's the next greatest thing. So,
what sort of persuasion do you have in terms of getting a school back or a field back towards natural turf if they're currently on synthetic?
Good question. A lot of times it comes down to the organization of the school's decision to turn back. The project gets put out for bid, and so that stuff's already been established, and then it's whether how we go about bidding for the job. Now, when it comes to a design build situation, which we do a lot of work with as design build, we have a little more leeway with the owner to be able to discuss with them the pros and cons of natural grass and synthetic field. But when it's just a straightforward project that's out for bid, that's already been established by the owner, and so that's something that we have to work with.
Yeah, when you have a high school that has a synthetic field and they get all that traffic on there, it's hard to go back to natural grass because the natural grass field won't sustain all those activities on the field. So it's kind of hard to convince them to go back to natural grass unless you give them another alternative field somewhere to play and practice on. So it's really hard. Yeah, I don't see any more questions. I don't see anybody raising their hands. Hey, I really appreciate your time tonight. And if they have any questions, they can always hit you up on this app too.
They can hit me on the app, or they can hit me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter, Jeff_Salmond. I think that's what it is. And then, so I mean, yeah, if there's any questions I can help you out with, I'd be glad to.
All righty. Well, thank you for joining us today, Jeff, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks for having me on, Spin.
No problem. Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.